welcome everybody watching online. We are at what we call our Revive All Team. Give it up, All Team. Woo! This is a time where we get together with all of the team members from our Revive volunteers, and we encourage one another, we pour into each other. And so I do some teachings that are a little bit outside of our Sunday schedules and talk about what God has really put on my heart for our church team as a whole. And I wanted to record this online because I really feel like these next two sessions are going to be content that a lot of churches can use. And before I get into this next session, I want to introduce the people on this stage real quick, just in case you don't know them. Mark and Shane Kalugai are heading up our student ministry. Jennifer and Mitch Barlow are heading up Revive Kids. This sexy pregnant lady is my wife, and she heads up everything in our household. And no, she's been running our nursery for right now, and she's been taking over Planning Center. Paul Rice, who's our financial director, and Shane and Rachel Cameron, they are heading up our small groups, and then Rachel's actually helping me with a new project as well. So really exciting. And what I want to talk to you about today, the reason why I have them on stage, and they are going to be super engaged in what I'm saying and not falling asleep, is I want to talk to you about the marriage of teams. And I want to read together Mark chapter 10, and you may have heard this passage before. This is Jesus talking. He says, at the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. And for this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. You ever heard that before? Okay, good. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate. And so what Jesus is talking about here is he's not making a political statement. He's actually making a religious statement because the people are challenging him and saying, hey, Jesus, where do you stand on divorce? Because Moses taught us that we could give our wives a decree of divorce and walk away from the marriage, no questions asked. And Jesus helps them understand that the reason why you're so easy to divorce your wife is because you've never thought of yourselves as one unit. You still think of yourselves as individuals. And according to Mosaic law, it was that easy. Guys, if we got tired of our wives, if they talked back, they didn't make dinner on time, they didn't get a good job, whatever the excuse was, you literally could just hand them a decree and go, we're divorced, and walk away. And Jesus makes this statement to give them some truth that the reason they're so flippant is because they don't see marriage as ordained by God, and they don't see marriage as one unit. Whenever you get into a marriage, the most unsuccessful marriages that I've run into and that I've had to do counseling with, when you dive in deep to the root of issues that couples are having, it's because married couples or even dating couples, engaged couples, is they see their relationship as me and me, not we. And if you've been married for any amount of time, you've experienced this. You navigate this season of me and me versus we. When you make a commitment in marriage, you're committing to the other person, I'm no longer an individual, you're no longer an individual, we're now one. Every decision that we make as one. And what I think we need to understand is that when we get into a team environment, we have to learn that we need to be married to our teams. Now, this is not going to go to a gross line, okay? But I want you to hear me. In a team setting, in any organization, but especially as the church, Jesus talks about this in 1 Corinthians 12, that we are the body of Christ. Each one of us has a role to play. I don't do everyone's job on this stage. They do it just fine because they have a piece of the body that they take on for themselves. But we all work together as Revive Church. In the same way, you're all a piece of the body of Revive Church. You have a part to play. And then individually, you're a part of a team. And we have to learn to be married to our teams and stop thinking as me and more like we. So how do we know if we're in a me and me relationship? Number one, me and me are not aligned to one vision. Me and me are not aligned to one vision. Unsuccessful, unhealthy relationships, each person has their own agenda. This is what a marriage looks like when it's me and me. The wife has planned out her next 5 years in her career or as a mother or whatever. The husband has planned out his next 5 years, that he's going to buy a house that looks like this, and he's going to drive this car, and he's going to do this and that. And no one talked to the other person about what those next 5 years looks like. And there comes a point in the middle of that transition of working toward each individual goal that you realize it didn't match up, and then you start attacking one another. You don't care about me, you don't care about me, all you're focused on is you, and guess what? You're both right. Me and me never focuses on the same vision. We're always focused on something different. Number two, me and me are not concerned with each other's health. If me is hurting, I can't let that slow me down. If me is hurting, I'm not even going to notice because I have my own agenda. If me is hurting, then that me needs to get help, but not for me. They can't expect me to take out time to help them because it was their fault in the first place. And number three, me and me refuse to be affected by the other's actions. You messed up, it's your fault. You clean it up. You did the damage. I shouldn't have to slow down my life to fix what you've done. Me and the kids shouldn't suffer because of your choices. You wanted to move a block away from your parents. You wanted to take that job 3 hours away. You wanted to move the family to this neighborhood. You wanted to take on the mortgage. You had the affair. You have the addiction. You got caught. This isn't my fault. Now, that's just a few major things I see in me and me relationships. But can I tell you that this can show up in our teams? It's so easy as a church organization for those of us who only serve 3 hours a week, maybe once or twice a month, for us to feel like when we show up, I'm just an individual filling a role, not a part of a team. It's so easy when you're just a job trying to get a paycheck to feel like you're an individual trying to make it until your shift ends, not a team member serving people through what you do. It's so easy when you're not the one in charge to feel like you're not valued or even that you don't add value. And what we have to start realizing is that in our revived teams, in our church teams, we are a team, and the health of one person affects the health of all of us. The actions of one person on our teams affects the actions of everyone else. We have to start caring about the team as a whole and seeking out everyone on our team and say, hey, you're not by yourself. This should never be a team that we serve on. There should never be a team that someone serves on and says, I feel like just one. Because we are a team working together. So we have to start thinking about turning me and me into we. Here are three key things about a we relationship. We are always aligned to one vision. Now, we are recording this for YouTube. Do not dare embarrass me. What is the vision of our church? Okay, that's good. That was not on a screen, I promise. They know that. We've ingrained that. It is. It's to introduce real people to the real Jesus. That's our mission, our vision, our purpose. Everything that we do revolves around that. When we are aligned to that one vision as a church, guess what? We are less likely to argue with decisions that are made. We are more likely to listen. We're less likely to argue. We're less likely to quit when we are encouraging each other that we are aligned to the same vision to introduce real people to the real Jesus. And when one of us gets outside of that vision and starts thinking it's all about me, we get to correct that together and encourage that person. No, we are aligned to one vision. The second thing is we are talking about our health. When I know that we are for each other, because the health of me affects the overall health of we, then we are willing to have those conversations. If one of these people on this stage is frustrated from our leadership team, guess what? We are all frustrated. If one of us is rejoicing, we're all rejoicing. If one of us is lame, we rip the roof off to get them to Jesus. Hello? If one of us is hurting, we are going to find healing. Because we trust each other, we are having these conversations. Some of the most wonderful things I've seen in our church on a Sunday morning is after we have our team rally, I have seen people who have gathered together and they start talking about what's going on in their life. And the coolest thing that I get to see is before church starts, team members praying for other team members. That we feel that kind of relationship, that we can be honest. And I want to encourage you, if you don't feel that, this is a place where you can do that. We're better to do it than church. To say, hey, I need some help. I need some prayer. This is what I'm dealing with. We're better than church to rejoice with other people. We care about the health of the team. And the last thing is this: we choose our next actions together. When there is no communication about where we are headed, each me tries to take a different route and ends up at a different location. Who can get there the fastest? Who can do their work the best? But when we decided, okay, this action is going to help us start narrowing down where we're headed, when we get there, and what our next steps look like, we won't be negatively affected. Why? Because all of us made this decision together and we're aligned. Make something clear. Alignment doesn't always mean agreement. You can be honest with me. Have you ever heard me make a decision for this church and you did not like it? Yeah, it's okay. It's okay to say yeah. You don't always have to agree with every decision, because honestly, you might say to yourself, I have a better idea. And you honestly might. But when we make a decision as a leadership team, or when our board of directors makes a decision, we make it together so that if we make mistakes, we don't blame one person. We take it upon ourselves and say, we as individuals making a team, we made this decision and we fix it together. We're not ending up in separate places. We are all headed toward the same thing. Our leadership team spent about a month at the church on Thursday nights coming up with the part of our vision that says we want church to be a place where no one feels like just one. And we had all-out brawls, it felt like, trying to get this worded, because we were in a new season of Revive, and we're meeting as a ministry team, and we're trying to figure out, like, what do we want this to say, and what is it that God's pouring in our heart? And I started with one thing, and as a visionary, I was like, this is perfect. And then they all told me it wasn't, and I was like, screw y'all, you're wrong, this is where we're... And I mean, we went back and forth. We had, I didn't write down any of these, but we had the craziest things on this board just trying to figure it out. Did you take pictures? Those will never see the light of day. But we finally came to a conclusion, and I remember when we finally agreed on, we want church to be a place where no one feels like just one. Not everybody on this platform looked at it and was like, I love it. In fact, I don't think any of us actually were like, that's perfect. Because there was verbiage that we just kind of were like, not sure. But when we all agreed, this is the heart of Revive Church. This is the vision we want people to feel. And we agreed on it. Guess what we did? We communicated it. We're pushing it. We're talking about it. We're having small groups engage in it. It's not the classiest slogan. It's not the most eloquent. I'm sure there's churches with better. But we came to an agreement that this is where we're going as a church, that no one would feel like just one, that this should be a place where no one feels like just one. And so we move forward. So I want to show you what this looks like for us on this platform as a leadership team. Because if we're going to have I want to push this aside for a second, if that's okay. You can take that? Thank you. If we're going to have teams that are healthy and are willing to have these discussions, actually, give me that piece of paper right there. Thank you. Then what I want us to understand is that it's going to start with me as the one who has been called to be the neck. I won't say the head. Jesus is the head. I'm kind of the neck of Revive Church. And so I talked to our leaders, and I asked them to prepare responses to these two questions. And this is for the health of our team. I don't know what they're about to say. So this could either be the best decision we've made together or the worst decision we've made together. But I want you to see that it is okay to be vulnerable, it's okay to be honest, and it's okay to listen to feedback from people you trust. And so I asked these two questions, and they have prepared notes. I asked them to tell me, as a part of our leadership team, what about me cultivates the health of we? What about me, as Pastor Stephen, cultivates the health of we? And so I think we have a mic, and I'm going to let them gracefully share that.
Hello? Okay. I think what you do really well for the health of we is change. Like, that's your strength. Like, you are such a visionary, and you are not afraid to just go, well, that's not working anymore, or that's not working well enough. That's the other thing, is you're hypercritical about it, and so you're constantly pushing to the next best thing.
Pass? I'm just kidding. One of the things that you do for the health of the we is that, yes, you're a visionary, and yes, you're very confident, but you're also very humble. And as soon as you realize that you've made a mistake, you're very quick to openly and publicly repent in front of us, in front of the church. And that makes it very easy to follow you. So.
Why'd you turn it off? He turned the mic off. I think one of the things, Stephen, that you do very well is you're very willing to talk with anybody about just about anything, and you'll sit and listen to whatever they have to say, and if advice is requested, you will give a response, and they may not like it, but at least you're willing to be open and honest and willing to talk with anybody just about anything.
Yeah, baby. Tell him how good I am.
We're going to be here for a while because he's so good at so many things.
Thank you.
One thing that you are really great about cultivating the health of we is that you are very passionate about seeing people grow. Even you are also very good at seeing potential in people when they may not even see it themselves. To help them, you will work with them, push them, challenge them to be the best that they can be.
Thank you.
All right. What I feel you do that helps is your ability to make decisions to better the church, no matter how easy or hard they may be, and then also just your ability to relate to real people.
I think one thing you do well is bring everything, no matter what it is, no matter what you're teaching, it all comes back and points to Jesus.
One thing that you really do well is you value the growth of our spiritual and personal, and you invest time and money into it.
She took mine. And I wasn't there during the meeting, so I got no response. I'm just kidding. No, one thing that you do best is you provide us resources for our personal and spiritual and even our leadership growth.
That's awesome. All right, that's all we have. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so that's easy. We love having times like that, don't we? When people are sharing what's best about us. But that's not vulnerability. I'm not trying to brag. Everything they just said, I already know about me. I'm not going to voice that to everybody because it is vanity. But I do know those things. Those are things that God has stirred up in me. He's grown in me. I've had to mature in some of those things. I haven't always been like what they just said. Okay, here's the hard part. If I really believe that it's not just me and that we are we, then I have to be willing to hear the other side. So I asked our leadership team to share with our church today, with all of our teams, what is it about me that hurts the health of we? Here we go.
Anyone want to go first? Sometimes it gets too harsh during our meetings, especially when we see these things that do not reach the level of your vision. It gets too rough sometimes.
For me, it's, I value the meetings that we do, but sometimes I feel like it becomes too much and too repetitive that I like the 2 times a month that we do. It gives us a little break.
I think sometimes like you want to start things, but we don't finish them. Or you have ideas about things, but not exactly. Like our accountability groups or the book that we read. We never finished talking about it. That's it.
Well, mine you kind of hit on earlier. I just feel at times you think too much about the big picture and don't focus on the small details.
Well, really, yes, you can do no wrong. I guess something that I've seen that you've gotten a lot better at.
Hey, just remember, there's a couch in the living room waiting.
When you take something on all yourself instead of involving someone else or bringing someone alongside of you to teach them because you know how to do it better or faster, you do it yourself, even though that takes your focus away from your main point and your strongest skills. I think that hurts the team.
Something that you have begun, that you have improved on immensely in the last several years is communicating whenever something is changing at a very high level, some major decisions. But sometimes, while you have gotten better at that, the moderate level and sometimes even the low-level decisions, because you are a visionary and things change just like that, sometimes there is a lack of communication, and especially that's helpful to me as a processor who wants to understand the details and understand why we're doing this, what is actually happening, and I think sometimes our team can feel caught off guard whenever the moderate level decisions are not communicated down the chain.
I kind of agree with Mark. I think sometimes you can be a little abrasive and dismissive when someone voices an opinion, and it kind of makes some people reluctant to maybe be vulnerable and expressive. So,
Jen totally took mine. But I can speak to more of the follow-up stuff. I think it's just a communication issue, echoing also what Paul said of, like, there's just not enough conversation. There's a ton of vision and a ton of moving forward and a ton of change, but not enough maybe nurturing those ideas as they go along. And there have been a lot of times when we start something and I'm like, yes. And then 3 months later, I'm like, wait, we aren't even doing that anymore. And was that even a thing? Did I dream that? Like, I was all in. And so when the next thing is presented, it gets harder and harder to be all in because I don't know if it's going to, how permanent it is.
That's awesome. So I wanted y'all to hear that to let you know we have 8 brand new positions in leadership for you to take on. And so if you're interested, come talk to me after the all team. No, I wanted you to hear that because I trust them. They have proven themselves. I trust and value their input, and everything they just said is absolutely correct. Again, these are things I know. These are things I think you've probably heard me say from the pulpit even. I am abrasive, and I sometimes tend to communicate vision, and then I throw it on others to carry that vision while I'm on to the next vision. And like Rachel said, it's almost like dust in the wind. It's like, did he actually say that? Or so everything they just said, I take that to heart. And by the way, it's not easy to hear that. I didn't like this, by the way. This was not encouraging for me, like, yes, finally, to hear the horrible things. But I trust them, and again, I have to come at this with the focus of, this is about we, not me. This is about we getting better, not me. And so here's the fun part, is now we get to do this with everybody in our leadership team. So we all get to do this for each other, and we're going to continue doing this because we have to work on this. And today, before we leave, after our next session, you're actually going to have the opportunity to do this with them. And so if you're a part of those specific teams, you're going to sit down with them and be able to voice these same things. What are some things that they have individually helped the health of we as our team, and what are the things that they have done that have hurt? And I want you to remember, some of the things that have hurt the health of we actually didn't come from them. It came from me. Because I changed something on the spot, and I didn't communicate it well. And so I want you to understand, this is how vulnerable we want to get as a team so that we can grow, because we want everyone to see this is not me and me and me. No, this is we. Okay? Can y'all give it up for them? They did a great job. Thank you, guys.